Welcome everyone to another Univirtual experience, a partnership between the Virtual World Society and Educators in VR. It's a month-long conference with workshops, panels, experiences through 19 different VR platforms. And I'm very excited today to have with us Michael, Rob, and Matt, who we're going to hear from in just a moment. But before we do that, we can't do these kind of conferences without the support from sponsors and supporters and the community. So I want to thank our Infinity sponsor, HP. And Matt here is from HP. Thanks for joining us, Matt. We have some exciting news to announce shortly. I'll do that in a moment. Also, our Galaxy sponsors, Engage and Class VR and Avantis have been fantastic in supporting us as well. Furthermore, we have Grove XR, the VR Lady, Donna McTaggart, our event manager and director at Educators in VR from Let's Meet in VR, Frame VR, Learn Bright, Waking Dreams. We have Steve Lewis and Dreams, and LBX Immersive. We have Craig Colwell. There you go. Big shout out. Thank you guys. And of course, our videographer team, who is today Andrew Burcastle, Andrew from BURR, and Carlos. Now, Carlos Austin, my good friend, I know you so well. So thank you so much for volunteering to record this. And there we've got Chad Behal as well. So having said all of that, welcome. Please make yourself comfortable. Just a little bit of housekeeping. We're going to be having a conversation with our guests here today. So as the audience, you will be soft muted, which means if you want something, raise your hand, let us know, and then you can unmute yourself. Contribute. Otherwise, I'm going to keep the microphones off because that reduces interference. See, we can have a couple of I'm going to jump here. Boom. Here we go. So, Matt, how you doing? You all right?
Yeah, doing great. Thanks for having us on today.
Absolutely. Rob, all good?
Yes, excellent.
Wonderful. Michael, great to meet you. Really glad to have you here. I'm going to ask you just to briefly introduce yourselves, what you do and why you do it, maybe, who you are, and then we'll get into some of the questions. All right, so let's start with Matt.
Sure, yeah. Hi, everyone. Yeah. Thank you. My name is Matt Gaiser from HP. Thank you all so much for being here today. I'm a business development manager within our advanced compute solutions business, where we house our VR business. And it's really fun to be working in this industry. I do it because, well, I love VR. I love cutting edge technology. And that's one of the reasons why, doing an event like this is so much fun. So great to be here today. Love all the work that the Educators in VR team and Univirtual is doing with education and leveraging the VR platforms, and can't wait to hear from our other guests as well. So thanks for having me.
Absolute honor. Thank you, Matt. Over to you, Rob. Brief introduction.
Everybody. Yeah. Hi, everybody. I'm Rob Theriault. I'm the immersive technology lead from Georgian College, which is in Barrie, which is an hour north of Toronto, Ontario. We're on beautiful Kemptville Bay.
Yeah. Wonderful. Thank you, Rob. And finally, Michael.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me. This is great. I'm Michael Avis. I work for the Teaching and Learning Exchange, which is the Center for Teaching and Learning for George Brown College. George Brown College is a large college in Toronto, Ontario, Canada.
Fantastic. Thank you, Michael. And just for you to know, I'm kind of half expecting two more guests, Sharon Owen-ColegMenia in North Wales in the United Kingdom, and Brian Carter from the University of Arizona. They may or may not join us. If they do, we'll just go with the flow, introduce and pick it up from there. And another kind of pointer, the title of today's conversation is Colleges in VR, which is kind of what it says on the tin, if you like. I've invited Matt here from HP because of your device, your headset is kind of targeted at the higher end. In particular, some of the tracking features will be very interesting to research and development. And I know that universities and colleges have a greater need for that than maybe, say, consumers or K through 12. So I'm really interested to hear your take on that in a moment. But maybe I'll start with Rob. A simple question. How are you using VR at your college?
Right. We 4 years ago, our architectural technology program incorporated virtual reality into their curriculum. So they've been using it, the originals. And so students design buildings and landscapes in 2D, and then they go into 3D, into virtual reality for kind of a spatial perspective. About a year and a half ago, they created a new position, immersive technology lead, and I was hired into that position. And we've been pursuing virtual reality very aggressively. We are running currently about 12 pilots in a whole host of program areas, and currently building out 3 new virtual reality labs at our satellite campuses.
Fantastic. I've known you for a while now, Rob, and when you say that you got hired, congratulations on that. And I know that once you were hired into that position, you're the person driving that, a lot of the kind of aggressive adoption. I know that we had a conversation about running around college and looking, I can make this, I can run a project with this department, I can run a project with that department. So yeah, well done for you. Michael, how are you using VR at your college?
Well, every time I sit next to Rob, I always joke that I'm his little brother when it comes to the VR in Canada. We at George Brown College, we have not gone to a fully, we don't have not applied or appointed an immersive lead yet. Hopefully that's coming, but we are in about 8 pilots right now, and we are deploying headsets to students from our library. We started in the VR space again, also with the construction engineering technologies. We had BIM labs where they were using Revit, different 3D modeling tools. So we slowly started to move towards the VR space. In the last maybe 2 years, year and a half. I started to investigate a little bit, and then I was lucky enough to meet Rob at a conference we have in Toronto called eCampus Ontario, which is a conference that they have. And there was a session on VR, and I was lucky enough to meet Rob. And then I've really started to push VR adoption as well at George Brown. So it's been a great collaborative experience working with Rob and Georgian College as well.
It's great to meet allies like that. I'm across the Atlantic Ocean from Rob, but I feel the same way. We have conversations where we're kind of, and I was immersive lead at our college for a while before I did VR full time. So interesting to hear that story. It's great to have allies. Now, Matt, you obviously work for HP and not a college, but HP is working with universities and colleges. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. We see, tell us about that. I see absolute need for VR and other immersive environments on campus, and it's so interesting to hear Rob and Michael's take on kind of how they got started, because that's how so many of the folks I interact with. It starts with a proof of concept or a series of pilots, and it's often centered around okay, we want to bring it into one area on campus, and then with success they look at how do they roll that out. And it becomes kind of a campus-wide thing. So yeah, in HP, obviously, education is a very large vertical segment for us, where we spend lots of time and energy and have lots of resources there, quite frankly. Right. So it makes positioning VR and helping universities take advantage of our solutions, very, very helpful, especially to see how they're using it, and how the impact it has on students, right, and the impact it has on campus. It's really, really, really great to be a part of that.
Wonderful. And if I'm not mistaken, did you have a program that universities can kind of apply to or collaborate with you? Tell us about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So actually, HP has partnered with a consulting firm called the Grants Office. So if you've got needs on campus to learn more about how to get funding, you can consult with us, and we can connect you with our team that is focused on sitting down, understanding the requirements, and quite literally can help universities and other campuses get the funding necessary to bring immersion onto campus.
Right.
So really awesome program we've started.
So they can reach out. They can find this information on the website.
Yeah, actually, they can reach out to me directly if you guys have questions. Otherwise, we do have a web link. I can email that to you, so you can provide it in the notes as well. So if you Google the Grants Office, just the Grants Office HP, it'll probably pop up as well. So
wonderful. Okay. Next question, guys. So first question was, how are you using it? Now I'm curious to know who's using it. maybe who's not using it, who doesn't want to use it? How's it being received? I mean, I know from my experience and listening to you two, I think you share this. When you're passionate, you're driving it, right?
Yeah.
But the vast majority of people I meet, they don't understand because they're not passionate, haven't been exposed to it. So I'm kind of chewing their ear off. And some of them humor me and give it a try and then are converts. Others kind of are a little slower to take it up. What have your experience? Who's using it and how are they responding to it, Rob?
Yeah, so broadly speaking, and Michael's probably had the same experience. A couple of things. One, as a community college, we don't have the same kinds of pressures to produce research that universities do, and that makes us somewhat stealth in some ways because a lot of universities will develop a VR application in-house, beta test it, and then do a study. It either gets integrated into curriculum or it stalls at that point. I've been very lucky. A senior management team has given me full reign, and to your point, what I've done is I've looked for literally just doing a Google search for virtual reality applications and coming to events like this and meeting people in Altspace and Engage VR and LinkedIn and other places and the VRARA, and learned about different programs, found ones that were compelling. And then what I did was I reached out to educators who I knew or had heard of, who were innovators and early adopters, and said, hey, I've got this amazing virtual reality application. I've got a trial version. You want to take a look at it? You've got to have buy-in at the educator level, because if you try to go from a senior management or middle management perspective, it's just bound to fail because educators don't like to be told how to teach or what to teach with. So you got to target the educators directly. And so that's what I've done. Yeah, I mean, I can tell you, take me 20 minutes to go through every single pilot we're doing, but I'll give you two examples quickly of pilots that have worked really well so far, and a pilot that hasn't worked so far. So, just as an example, I spent some time in Altspace VR, learned how to do some basic world building skills, and I attended an event where there was a language event. And it kind of inspired me. I realized at that event that if you're teaching language, and I'm not a language teacher, but it struck me that context-based learning is really important. And I knew our Indigenous Studies program had language courses, and one of them was language in the home. So I built this house and furnished it, and I approached the Indigenous Studies faculty and said, what do you think about using virtual reality for learning, having your students learn in a VR environment in an actual house? And they embraced it right away. So for a year now, they've been spending at least a half an hour a week in immersive virtual reality, not just learning with the teacher, but also students coming in between classes and having conversations and socializing in a way that's a lot more intimate than, say, a video conference, which is fantastic. So they bought into it 100%. They purchase additional headsets. They're now using virtual reality in their first and second semesters. In contrast, I really thought virtual reality would be amazing for fine arts students. And so I approached our fine arts faculty, and I got them a bunch of headsets, and we hosted a tilt brush event. And believe it or not, I actually taught the students how to use tilt brush, which is crazy because I'm not an artist, and I really don't know how to do tilt brush. But in literally 10-20 minutes, the students knew more about tilt brush than I did. So we had like 18 students. They all had a lot of fun, and it was really great. And one of the teachers was pretty enthusiastic about it. And then the pandemic hit. And when I asked them if they wanted to do a pilot with virtual reality, their initial response was no, like we're just too overwhelmed with moving to online. And even a semester later, they still said we're too overwhelmed. So I've kind of backed off on that.
That's a good problem to have, though, Rob. Right? Is the reason that it failed was because of a pandemic, not because there wasn't buy-in. That's a pretty good problem to have.
Not because of VR.
That's good.
Thank you. And Rob, you did an event, was it only yesterday, actually, demonstrating the kind of the fruits of your labor. Rob has had a house built. I see somebody trying to get in there. If you're on the outside trying to come in, You need to actually push through the airlock. Follow the arrow, go down to the red arrow and push through the airlock, and then you just push through the door. You come in. There you go. That's hilarious.
In the air.
But yeah, Rob, you showed us your house that had kind of audio links and you could play it. And it was a wonderful ceremony with the Indigenous faculty. So yeah, it's great to see the journey you've been on and to see kind of where you're at right now. Michael, what about you? How are people responding? Has it all been plain sailing for you?
The short answer, no. Our biggest challenge, right, is what Rob is mentioning. It's just when we started to get rolling, the pandemic hit, and getting the headsets to students has been a real challenge. Teaching them how to use the headsets properly, how to turn them on, how to turn on the Wi-Fi from a distance has also been very, very challenging. But we have had a couple really good successes. One of the things that we do is we have a hospitality and events planning program at George Brown, and we took the opportunity during the COVID pandemic, although we're still in it in Canada, very still in it, is we went to a hotel in Toronto, the Hilton Downtown Hotel, and we scanned the front entrance, the foyer, the bar area, and a conference space in the basement. And we scanned it all, and then we had some design students render it in VR, and we put it into Engage, into this platform, and we had students in the actual twin of the Hilton Hotel doing event planning classes. And it was really amazing because the cameraman up there, you can see, we had students up at a bird's eye view like that. Yeah. And then we had tables, and they had to physically move the tables around the room to show what an event space would look like, where the tables would go, where the chairs would go. If it was a COVID event, then say you had to have 25% capacity, where would they move those around? So it was a really, really interesting experience to see the students actually moving tables around and then being able to go up into an elevated position and see the bird's eye view of that. Yeah. Alternatively, what they were doing before was they were using a 2D software where they just, were basically on a PowerPoint putting circles on a piece of paper. Yeah. And to see the difference between the immersive VR in a lifelike environment compared to what they were doing previously was a real success. So we're building on that for September. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you for that, Michael. Just want to address, we've got Kai here. Kai, if you can hear me, yeah, the audience is just kind of locked into their seats at the moment and muted because we're listening to the conversation. So please stay still, or you might want to find a different event if that's not for you. Thank you. Okay. Yeah, that sounds absolutely amazing. A great application of virtual reality. This concept of digital twinning is I've been hearing it more and more. It's coming now with the new LiDAR scanners and stuff like that. Yeah. But so go on.
I was just going to say we were really lucky. Sorry, Rob.
Yeah. Go on, Michael.
I was just going to say we're really lucky because we at George Brown have a game design school. We have an architectural technology school. We have an interior design school. We have a computer science school. Yeah. So what we're looking at is we can send students out to scan the space. Yeah. We can hand those files off to the gaming design people. They can create it in 3D. Then the design students can take that model and put in design elements within that. So we have a really good collaborative approach between different schools to sort of start to create these digital twins.
That's absolutely amazing. We were going to run an event titled Multidisciplinary Approach to VR, and I think that's so important that you get different people and their perspectives and skills and sensitivities kind of working on joint projects. That's amazing. While I was talking, while I was listening to you, it dawned on me, or it struck me that maybe colleges and kind of training colleges in particular are actually the sweet spot for education in VR. Now, hear me out. It's a bit of a theory. I'm not sure if it holds, but K through 12, you have a number of issues, class sizes and kind of device management, maybe limits of age and that students can access these devices. So that's a bit of a,
cost is a big one.
Yeah, that's a constraint. And then universities are doing amazing things, but like Rob was saying, when you're a research university, then it's kind of it might not reach people as broadly. You're doing very specific, deep work. But in a training college, a professional training college, public college, you're actually training professionals, and they have the maturity maybe, or the experience to really get into this. I wonder, what do you think of that, Matt? That actually training colleges are kind of a bit of a sweet spot. Would you go with that?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. We've seen a lot of success with supporting vocational schools and community colleges who have a need for training. I think you're absolutely right about K through 12. There's issues with content, there's issues with age, and just making sure, and cost is always a very huge barrier as well. But once you get, into the college level, into universities and into vocational schools, there's that level of maturity, and there's a level of ability for the people there to recognize, they're typically there because they want to be there, and they totally recognize that this tool can help extend their reach, whether it's extending their reach into the real world through some kind of training they can't otherwise access, or extending their reach and augmenting their programs with just limited availability to do something that's very high priced or very expensive, and a VR headset can help offset that cost. So yeah, absolutely. Vocation and training in general is huge. Yeah.
Right. Okay. And then also, I suppose that at that age, let's say 16, 18 and upwards, they're actually starting to be able to create content as well. Whereas K through 12, it's more likely to be on the consuming side of experience. And then you need that curriculum aligned content to go with it. Whereas with training colleges, maybe in some departments, you can create and collaborate.
Yeah, you can definitely tap into and foster the creativity of a higher ed student or a vocational student, whereas definitely in a consumption mode on K through 12.
There you go. I think I'm gonna please.
You gonna jump in, Rob?
Just to build on what Michael was saying earlier.
Yeah.
So in higher education, in community colleges in particular, you can a lot of colleges and universities have development or game development program and XR development programs, which is great. And I think schools should tap into that, and we're doing that to a very limited extent. But this is a fairly nascent technology. We know it's an old technology, but it's nascent in terms of its use, in terms of its usability of community colleges and universities. Really only been viable since about 2016 or so, 2015, and this is such a unique learning platform. It's the only virtual reality, immersive virtual reality is the only educational technology I'm aware of where students can learn in the cognitive, psychomotor, and affective domain, and that's really incredible. And so I think it's really important for educators to try to get into virtual reality aggressively, as we have and as Michael has, because it's important for teachers to start to understand the pedagogy or the pedagogical potential of this medium, and also, and to achieve that, to somewhat aggressively, what we've done is we purchased off-the-shelf products for, as I say, about 12 different pilots. Just to explore those and get a sense of it, and we'll do some research, probably starting some research this fall, and because you can really get stalled out, when you get into the development side of it, and then the research side of it, and then it becomes a non-starter.
Yeah,
go.
I was going to say, to follow Rob, one of the strategies that we've been using, and I think you're absolutely right, Rob, is the importance of the importance of the faculty being on board. So one of the things that we've done about the Teaching and Learning Exchange is we've really focused on getting faculty into headsets and getting faculty to have that experience. I'm sure all of you, and I know Rob, you have too, the challenge of VR is I can make as many promo videos as I want, but until they have the headset on, they don't experience it. So we've really said, okay, any faculty member who wants to try anything in VR, we're sending them headsets so they can actually put them on and actually see what they can do, rather than us trying to put up a YouTube video of, say, this presentation and say, here's what it is. It's got to be, they have to be in it.
A little less conversation, a little more action, please, right?
Right.
I have a question for the audience. How many of you, raise your hand, are educators?
Yeah, good question. We got One here.
One, two.
Got a couple over there.
Maybe
We've
some
got
of them might be in
Yeah.
PC, Rob, so they can't raise their hands.
There you go. That's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
For
Yeah.
those of you who are not educators, for those of you who are educators, you'll understand exactly where I'm coming from. Technology has to be simple. It has to be intuitive.
Right.
And VR is getting there. It's pretty close right now, but a lot of applications are not intuitive. So they need a Michael or a me or a Daniel to guide them along. But what's really important as an educator, in addition to adopting VR, is to create a peer learning network. And a peer learning network can be events like this. It can be LinkedIn. It can be other places. For example, Michael and I are collaborating with virtual reality anatomy. So his faculty, our faculty are meeting regularly. They're talking about a particular virtual reality program for anatomy. They're talking about what they like, what they want to see changed. We're going to communicate with the company to tell them what we want. We're learning from one another. We're creating best practices models. We're doing this with St. Cloud State University in Minnesota. We're doing it with Winston State University. We're doing it with a whole bunch of schools. We're doing patient simulation with CIMEX, with University of Nebraska Medical Center in Georgian. We're both using that program in nursing. So
and if I can,
network collaboration is really important.
And if I can add with the collaboration point, like the peer networks are really important, but also there's some collaboration that can go on with industry. There's so many developers right now that these developers are looking to pilot their products in colleges and universities. So if you could get in early on some of these development opportunities, they can actually get it at a very reasonable price. So for example, we're piloting a soft skills interview VR experience at our college. And we're doing it with a company called Body Swaps out of England.
Yeah.
And we were lucky enough. I think I was talking to Rob and said, "Hey, Rob, do you know any soft skills VR experiences?" And I think one of them you mentioned, Rob, was Body Swaps. So I Googled them. I've had quite a few really interesting meetings with them. They're going to offer us a pilot at a very, very reasonable cost, basically no cost. And they're giving us lots of licenses to play with once we're done that sort of initial pilot for them. So I think the idea about collaboration amongst colleagues is actually key, but also getting out there early and talking to some of these developers and maybe collaborating with them could be a real advantage for you also as educators.
I second that. Absolutely. When I got started, one of the first things I did was just research, right? Deep research, communities on Facebook, LinkedIn, companies, and quite quickly you join groups who are in a similar situation. One thing leads to another, and because it's so early on Twitter, the developers are trying to get attention and share, and you hit them up, they're going to get back to you. They want that kind of attention. So and Matt, in some ways that's kind of your offer as well. You have this amazing new technology. You want it to be in the right hands and applied in kind of new, innovative ways. So if colleges and universities approach you, that's your you welcome that, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, we're always making connections, and I get on the phone a lot with various universities and customers who have a need for VR. They have a desire to bring VR into their worlds, and I always recommend having a connection, making one with a independent software vendor, because to Michael's point, to Rob's point, it's a nascent industry. They're growing their businesses, and as great as it is to have off-the-shelf applications to run, sometimes you need a little bit of help from an industry partner. And so establishing those relationships like we do through our ISV program is obviously a huge value add for customers, and helps keep the opportunities moving forward in VR.
Fantastic.
Now, Matt, can we put you on the spot?
Sure.
Rob, do you want to put Matt on the spot about costing?
I'm not going to put Matt on the spot about costing, but it is a bit of a barrier, cost of headsets and software. But I will target Matt a little bit, because HP has some amazing technology, and just for your interest, we just submitted a grant application for a $12 million grant to Queen's University and St. Lawrence College. And what we're looking to do is driver simulation, both video driver simulation with wraparound video and virtual reality simulation. And our objective is to look at cognitive load for novice drivers, experienced drivers, and expert professional drivers. And headsets like the HP OmniSet and the other HP headsets that have, things like pupillometry and eye tracking and galvanic skin sensors and pulses and everything else are great, technologies for gauging cognitive load and stress levels. And this is going to be increasingly important with VR in schools because we're looking not just, this is just one example of a study we're looking at embarking on, but also particularly important in medicine and nursing and paramedicine, where we want to gauge stress levels and be able to cater the learning to the sort of the healthcare provider students in such a way that we're scaffolding the stress levels to build in stress inoculation. So we're presenting them with maybe a low acuity patient type scenario and then building from there to higher acuity, something that's been literally impossible to do. But now with advanced headset technology, it's going to be possible, and it's very exciting for research.
Fantastic.
Yeah, that's great to hear. And yeah, Michael, to kind of touch on your cost question there, or putting me on the spot about cost. Yeah, we definitely have solutions that are, they're tethered solutions, or PC tethered solutions, and that tends to drive the cost up a little bit. Our focus has been, a very, very high fidelity experience when you're in VR. And so that continues to be a driving point at the enthusiast level, which is what's driving up the cost for a lot of our headsets. But definitely, stay tuned. We're serious in VR. We continue to invest in R&D, and look forward to bringing more products to the market. And Omnicept is just one of the latest ones that brings in, new insights that I don't think VR. I don't know of a headset on the market other than our HP Omnicept edition that's doing what we're doing. That can bring, kind of a user-centric VR experience to the table, with the ability to do eye tracking and have, a face camera for 3D image capture and realistic avatars, as well as, heart rate sensor, right, for things like cognitive load, which, Rob, it sounds great to hear that you guys are working with that. And definitely, cognitive load is one of those things that in a training environment, it means so much. And so we're so impressed with the work from our HP Labs team that's helped bring this solution to the market.
I have to admit, I can't wait to see good face tracking in VR, like proper good face tracking, like frowning and smiling and smirking and all those facial expressions you can get. I can't wait for that.
I'm not sure I want that for meetings. I really don't want to know.
Maybe so you need the toggle on and off function, right?
Yeah, there's always an option.
So Matt, just to sort of follow up on that point, I want to pin you down a little bit. I think, with someone like your company that's providing these sort of higher end products, but also talking about the interest in educational packages and educational pricing, I think, an issue that we need to address is that kind of digital equity that I think we're all looking for. Like, I think Rob's right. We're at the stage where we can now start to look at, headset carts of VR to students, to schools, whether it's K to 12 or post-secondary. I'm just wondering, in the pipeline, what are you guys thinking about as far as device management on a larger scale, consumer scale? Obviously, a lot of us are dealing with Quests right now, and that whole challenge. Are you going to be a real competitor to the Quest when it comes to standalone headsets and price, so that VR can be a little bit more equitable and be out and not just sort of higher end universities and colleges?
Yeah, no, that's a very good background noise. That's a very good.
Go.
No worries. That's a very good question, Michael. Yeah, definitely. We are definitely investing big, as I mentioned, in VR, and definitely looking for ways to bring that enterprise management, that education management platform to the table. So I think all I'm allowed to say at this point is, stay tuned.
I love that tease. Lovely. That's always a good sign. All right.
And, a segue to that is that pricing is often a big determinant between whether you're going to build a VR lab versus VR for distance learning. We have just over 190 VR headsets, and about 118 have been deployed for distance learning. And when you start to get above $400 Canadian, that's $50 American. When you start to get above $400 Canadian, it becomes cost prohibitive to buy headsets and ship them out to students, and that's the model we're doing right now. We might go to a rental model sometime in the future, but I suspect we'll likely stick with the college will buy the headsets and we'll ship them out to students.
Right.
And the onus will be on the students to perhaps buy the software, for example. But your type of headset, it would be restricted to a VR lab. And VR lab is very important for a lot of things, for programs that are short, or programs that are expensive, for programs that require PCVR.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And definitely one thing. Oh, sorry. Definitely one thing that I see a lot of universities doing is looking for ways to, especially during this pandemic. And the question I like to ask a lot of folks when I get on the phone with them, especially this year, is what are your plans for the fall, right? And the answer is kind of it depends, right? And so in those environments, I definitely try to tee up some of our more mobile solutions, like a PC tethered VR headset with a laptop in a Pelican case or something like that can be maybe checked out from the library. Just so there's at least a way to get some VR on campus, and maybe teachers can kind of rotate through. And it's not, I think at this point, it would be great to have a headset per student, right? But that's definitely cost prohibitive unless you're in a very specific environment, like one of our universities that focuses on game development and stuff. And they provide every student with a VR ready laptop and a VR ready headset. And that's a whole nother level, right? They're pretty far along.
You got headsets that are subsidized, right? Like Facebook has the money to subsidize their headsets, and consequently, they're
creating false expectations a little bit as well.
False expectations, but Mike and I are putting the pressure on Facebook as well. I've been communicating with their senior management team to say, we need a viable and affordable solution that protects student privacy and security. So you're out there, or some other headset company is going to come along and kick your ass.
And that's actually what we're yearning for, is for some other company to come along and be a real competitor. And from the new products that have been coming out, there was a bit of disappointment, I think, in the educational field, that those costs were still a bit high, where we couldn't really compete with having to purchase the Quest at this point.
Yeah. Just a note, you mentioned there, Rob, about possibly going to a rental model. I know Craig, you with us? Craig Colwell was here earlier. There he is. Craig is actually doing exactly that with his company, LVX Immersive. You can hire equipment, and then you handle the shipping as well, if I'm not mistaken, Craig. Maybe after the event we can have a conversation. Yeah, well, go on quickly.
I wish Brian were here, because majority of the headsets that are on the campus at University of Arizona, we created a model for University of Arizona where the student goes to the bookstore, and if the professor says you need to have a VR headset for the semester, they go to the bookstore. They have a direct link where they're renting the headset through the bookstore, but it's actually coming from us. We have some inventory on their campus, but we also deliver it direct to students who are remote, and then they know when to send it back.
Okay.
We're running the similar thing through the library now. So we've just tried that. I know, Rob, I'm not sure if you're in the library yet, but we're just starting now to deliver it through the library. But certainly, having the possibility of having more headsets available like that would be worth investigating.
But what it did was it allowed them to get 300 headsets on campus immediately without having the university have to come out of budget on it. And that was and we're using that at several other schools right now, and it's been successful, and the students have been very responsive, and and Brian were here, they're using it not just in Brian's classes, which are fantastic, and everybody should go see his thing tomorrow, the virtual Harlem, but
yes,
the other colleges are using it, and several other departments down there at Arizona.
Lovely. Okay. Sorry, I'm just gonna. We've got.
Yeah, I think that might be a model we'll explore in about 5 years' time once we get through our pilot.
Okay. Yeah, good. Now, I want to ask a slightly different question, and these conversations are always too short, but there you go. the elephant in the room is the pandemic. And there's been many people kind of saying, well, obviously nobody would choose to have a pandemic. So we've got a very persistent lurker here, and I may have to do something about it.
I can see him bobbing around underneath the stage.
Yeah, yeah. We'll
grab my glass so he doesn't grab it.
Yeah, watch your keys. Yeah, so obviously you wouldn't choose a pandemic, but then at some point people... All right.
Just going to eject him?
That's not an option, but I can sit him down. There you go. So I was gonna say, and he's figured out a way to get through it, so it won't be long before he's really distracting. Kai, can you do me a favor? Find somewhere else to play. You'll have a great time somewhere else. Lovely. Okay. So what was I gonna say? Yes, you wouldn't choose a pandemic. And then people argue, well, it's been good for VR. And I kind of follow the reasoning, but personally, I want VR to stand on its own 2 feet in its own right. I mean, and I'm not sure whether it has really driven it.
It hasn't. It's a myth.
Yeah.
It's a myth. So VR, the pandemic has not been good for VR, because most schools have just, they've had to shift from teaching face-to-face to online and video conferencing. Most teachers for the very first time, and most schools are not doing much in the way of VR. And almost every school on the planet that had VR labs running has shut them down. We're only just reopening our VR labs with infection control measures in place. So my personal view from conversations with educators from around the world is it has not for VR. Having said that, on the flip side, I think we can look at, we've gone from asynchronous online learning, which is, I did my undergraduate degree that way. I did my master's degree that way. So I went to 2 universities and have not been to either of those universities. And it was asynchronous, and asynchronous learning is, you got to be motivated for it. It's a very isolated experience, and can be ranged from really good to really mediocre. But we've made that switch now to a combination of asynchronous and synchronous, which is fantastic. So the pandemic has been good in that way. But now we have, there's discussion around going a step further and creating polysynchronous learning. So what I mean by that is I've had discussions with our senior management team, for example, about anatomy in virtual reality and how popular it is with our 2 pilots. And what I'm trying to persuade them to do, and I'm pretty convinced they're going to do this, is now we've got 5,000 students who register in an anatomy course every year. They should be able to choose between, I want to do this face-to-face, or I'm going to register for a traditional online learning, which will be a combination of asynchronous and synchronous, or I'm going to register for the virtual reality anatomy, in which case they'll get a little bit of asynchronous, a little bit of video conferencing, and at least a half an hour a week of virtual reality,
immersive
life science lab, immersive virtual reality. And I think so. In that sense, the pandemic has been good.
Okay, to kind of show the need or the appetite for different models. Michael, what do you think? Is the pandemic being good for VR, or has it slowed it down, or a bit of both?
I think it's been good and bad. I think a lot of the sort of more reluctant faculty have embraced the idea that there are new ways of teaching and learning besides traditional PowerPoint and 2.5-hour lectures. I think that's been a good thing, that they've been forced into thinking about ways to connect with their students that's not face-to-face. I think it's also been bad, and I would agree with Rob that, as we were gaining momentum, all of a sudden the entire emphasis of the college was, let's make sure that our faculty are not just delivering lectures. So let's put all of our energy, all of our funds into teaching them how to teach online, which they never were. No one was really teaching effectively online anyways, but all of that emphasis was put into that section. And that almost closed down many avenues for research and development, many avenues for experimentation because of budgeting. I think
my lab got shut down pretty much like that. And the ironic thing is, they called that virtual teaching. They called it there you go.
Here's the risk of the lecture. Like the lecture is considered the lowest form of pedagogy. Now, there are some great lectures and some great storytellers, but there is a high risk that if someone lectures in the classroom, and that's what they do predominantly, they're going to come into virtual reality and they're going to lecture.
And do the same thing.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's the worst thing you could do for virtual reality, right? Like we're in this, we're on a panel discussion, which is a little more engaging than a single person here going wah, 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 wah. But you know, your audience is muted. And the quickest way to anesthetize the audience is to give a lecture and put everyone on mute, or even worse, use the Dolores Umbridge feature of locking them into their seats, which you got to do for some disruptive students, right?
Yeah.
The best thing you can do, you know, the best thing you can do with virtual reality is have people doing things. So have them role playing, have them doing things with their hands, have them. You know, if you're going to give a talk about ancient Greece, why not do it on the steps of the Parthenon? That's you've got
Totally agree. Right.
But punctual, but punctual, meaningful, outcomes-based learning experiences that are short, that have impact, that bring the immersion. You're right, not the transition to, no, I'm going to stand here for 2 hours and do the same thing I did in my old class.
Please, Matt, go on.
Oh, I was just going to say, I'd say the pandemic, more than anything, probably just brought technology more into the center of our daily lives, and how we connect. And in education, kind of forced more technology into that space. So I think VR it went through ups and downs, but had moments where it's one kind of technology, right? It's been around a while, but it's got a lot of development in it, and I think it brought it up to the surface. But definitely sad to see its impact on the shutting down of labs. Especially now as I engage with a lot of schools about turning those labs back on, looking at reinvesting in technology, and just knowing that all that compute sat there kind of at idle, right?
But I think very sad. But I think it was a pause. It wasn't a stop. True, It was a pause.
Fair enough.
Have those people reach out to us, because we're collaborating with a number of colleges and universities about infection control measures and developing some standards.
Wonderful. Yeah. If you're wanting some of the colleges you're collaborating with to link in with the work happening here.
Absolutely.
So we're going to open it up for questions in just a minute. But before we do, I want to pick up on what you said in terms of the interaction. And so I'm very aware that last year when we did the summit in February, we didn't know what we were doing. It was great fun, and it turned into quite an event. But looking back, we realized that the format we chose, we asked speakers to give presentations. So what did we get? A whole lot of presentations, which were PowerPoint and VR. And then, you know, it was what it was. It was amazing. But once we'd recovered from that 6 days, 24/7, we kind of thought, well, you know, we won't do that again. We won't do it like that again, which is our approach this year, is to have much more conversations, which, like you said, is a step further. But in my heart of hearts, what I want is to have an experiential learning fest and make it a week or two. People bring their best experiences. There's not a sofa inside. There's not a PowerPoint inside. We're doing stuff, just like you said, Michael. So watch out. This time next year, I want to put on like even if it's like rough at the edges, as long as it's a workshop or something experiential, that's what I would like to focus on.
So one of the great things about Engage is, like, there's lots of experience that we could bring all these people in, and we can all of us could go to the Hilton and move tables around, right? And we could all do that kind of work.
And on that note, Brian Carter tomorrow is giving a virtual Harlem experience, and it is experiential. So please do join that.
Absolutely.
All right. So we got a bit of time for questions. Raise your hand. Let me know if you have a question. You can unmute yourself then. Try and make your questions quite direct. We've got Video Girl here. What's your question and who's it for? Are you able to unmute yourself, Video Girl, there, I think?
Yes, I can.
Lovely. Hi.
I'm going to go give Video Girl a cup while she's talking. Here you go, Video Girl. There you go. You can have a cup. Yes.
Thank you. I hope it's tea and not coffee.
Okay, that can be tea and coffee.
Okay, that's good. My question is about the future of university and VR. In a few years or maybe longer, what do you foresee for colleges in VR? Do you think there will be a time when it will be standard for all students to be using VR in universities, or or what?
I can take a shot
Mike.
at that.
Yeah, go on.
Hey, we've got a 3-year plan in that Center for Hospitality, where right now we're buying headsets like Rob is, and we're buying headsets and deploying them. We're hoping within the next 2 years we're ready to pilot. When you come to the School of Hospitality, because George Brown has a very large international student base. So when you're coming, let's say we have 25% international. When you come, part of your tuition is the technology fee, which would include a headset. So we're hoping within the next couple of years, instead of having to do what we're doing, which is putting stamps on and mailing them out, that part of their hospitality experience is a VR headset. Now, just to add a quick point to that, is you can actually ship headsets from the purchase point directly to students. So we have a lot of students in India. The headsets are manufactured in China. We can actually have them loaded and ready to go from China. It goes directly to the student. So it doesn't have to be kept. So that's an option that we're looking at. Yeah.
Wonderful. Okay.
Yeah.
Rob?
Can I take that question?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, that's a complicated question, and I'm not a futurist, but I would say there are virtual reality applications for every conceivable discipline. Even the liberal arts. I think it's important for learning basic communications and understanding the business world. They're going to have to be able to have a good understanding of immersive virtual reality meetings, immersive virtual reality events, things like that. So I could see it in every conceivable program to a limited extent. It's not going to be, if you've got a 4-hour course, you're not going to spend 4 hours in VR. Although, in 20 years' time, VR glasses might be contact lenses. VR glasses might be much more comfortable, in which case, might be, or you might just swallow a pill and experience.
There you go.
I'm not taking the red pill.
with nanobots that disappear as biodegradable.
I thought you said you weren't a futurist, Rob. That sounds a little bit like.
I'll come to David in a minute, but
back at me and says, Rob, I was wrong about that.
one way to look at it, maybe, and I'll come to Chad in a moment as well. Video Girl, 30 years ago, you might have been asking, do you think everybody will have a PC? And then 15 years ago, you might have been asking, is everybody going to have a mobile phone? And now we're asking, is everybody going to have? We didn't know then whether they were or weren't, and we don't know now whether they will or won't, but it's just another device, the next iteration of device. And it is a compelling device. The spatial aspect of it is very compelling. And with companies like HP and other companies, Pico is doing well. I bet, give it 2-3 years or before, fingers crossed, HP will have a standalone device because they're so compelling. And they'll be more ubiquitous. Right now, price point, content, it's all coming slowly. Whether we will or we won't is yet to be seen, but I could imagine though. Well, we have a friend from Nokia who's projected by 2027 we might see 1 billion VR headset users. That's his projection based on other historic data.
That's pretty interesting. I would say that certainly anywhere on campus, I can think of any college, any university, every single spot there's a use case for it. So it's certainly just a matter of time, I think, for technology to kind of catch up to a point where it comes more to the fold. It doesn't mean that, again, this idea of a single headset for every student may not be the case, but there's definitely room for VR in every college and every discipline.
Yes,
some way on campus for sure.
Agreed. Thank you, Matt.
In a single word, the one remarkable and compelling thing about virtual reality, mixed reality, augmented reality to some extent is that it's experiential, and you can't get that with anything else. And that experiential experience, forgive the redundancy, is huge for education in every conceivable one.
Absolutely agreed.
I think there's another question.
I'm going to come to David and then Chad, and then I think, and we got Reese, maybe a question. I think after Reese, we'll leave it there. But David, please, your question, and who is it for?
What's questions for both Michael and Rob? And until such time that cost comes,
There you go, David.
Hospitality training for you.
That's right.
I'll give you.
okay, wasn't moved.
Well, you should
have.
You should be able to grab it now.
Okay. Decaf. What do you mean? Come on,
you don't know what's in my cup, David. It's a long weekend and it's a Friday afternoon, so.
Well,
All
as
right,
the cost of VR headsets come down and content gets developed, what do you think of using more non-immersive VR type of platforms like Virbela? I mean, everybody already has a PC, and you have a whole campus, and whether it's classrooms or meetings or conferences, it seems that there's also room for that type of VR. You certainly have a presence. You feel like you're with classmates. You feel like you're with teachers. You feel like you're together having a shared experience. So what do you think about that as a way of complementing or supplementing?
So David, that's a great question. We really are doing parallels with Virbela and Engage. So we kind of scaffolded in a way, and I think one of the questions, and this is coming back to Video Girl's question about when we're ready, the real question is not when the technology is ready. For me, the question is when is the faculty ready? And there's a lot of difficulty with getting faculty ready to do what we're doing right here. So what we do with Virbela is we've got quite a few licenses, and I like to think of that as sort of VR Lite or starter VR. It's much easier to get into. It's much easier to download and have access to. So we do a lot of classes and a lot of sort of meetings in Virbela to get them used to the concept of an avatar. To get them used to a concept of spatial awareness with other students. And then what we do is we scaffold Engage on top of it. So once they're ready and they feel like, yes, they're working well and they understand the concept of VR, I'm using air quotes here, Engage is the next step. So yeah, there's a definite use for it as far as I see. Rob?
It's a gateway drug to
VR. Exactly.
I love Virbela for a couple of reasons. So some people call it a 2.5D experience. It's not one thing or another. It's a combination of things. And it depends on what people are most comfortable with, right? So if Virbela was suitable for a standalone headset, I would be there in my standalone headset while lots of other people are in their on their PC. There is a greater sense of presence, in my personal opinion, with a headset on. But what I love about Virbela is that you can walk around this campus, and we have a big contract with I Learned Virbela, so we have our own office space and we teach classes in there. You can walk around the campus, and when you go to an event, you can just walk down the sidewalk and talk to strangers. You can't do that on Zoom.
Yes.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And between events, you can network with people, which is truly fantastic. I see some things too, like play soccer and drink fake booze, and listen to music and things like that.
I saw something. Sorry, go ahead, Robert. Didn't mean to interrupt you there.
I was just gonna say, it's not an all or none. It's gonna be a combination of things.
A quick anecdote for you, David. One of the biggest challenges we have right now with COVID, and we've surveyed our students and asked them, is a sense of community and a sense of community of learners. Really difficult for students right now. So just a quick anecdote. We did an event for the campuses of Ontario, and they did it all in Virbela. And they had many, many students coming in, thousands coming in and out. And one of the things I saw that was so interesting was in between the sessions, you had groups of 20, 30, 40 students doing coordinated dancing together.
Really?
And none of them were going to the same school. They didn't know each other, but they found a way to
flash mob.
To flash mob, and that's what they were doing. And I just thought, what a great value in bringing a community. Bringing these community of learners together in something like that.
Absolutely.
Well, the fact that my avatar dances way better than I do. I love that.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, and me. Okay. Thank you for that, David. We're going to go to Chad and then Reese. And then I just want to say, I know we've gone over time. This happens when the conversation is good and we're enjoying ourselves. If you need to leave, of course, feel free to. If you want to stay, we are going to, after Reese, I've got one or two little things to bring out and play with. If you want to stay for that, that's great. Chad, please.
So you talked earlier, Daniel, about making developers ages 16 through 18 in the K through 12 generation. Have you looked into Roblox developers at all and how they kind of communicate in their community with them having the most K through 12 developers that are students?
I have not, Chad. I've recently heard again of Roblox, and I think I read a headline that they are pursuing VR quite a lot. I know my son introduced me to Roblox. It's a game development platform. Looks super versatile. I haven't tried it in VR yet. I would love to, and I really hope it comes. So I'd love to know more about it, and maybe if you are not already a member of our Facebook and Discord group, you could come there and tell us a little bit about it. Is this something you're using, Chad?
Yes. So I do XR development, like augmented reality and virtual reality, but then I also have been doing using the Roblox platform for about 3 years now.
And is it ready to have immersive experiences?
I would say that the virtual reality portion of it, their documentation isn't the strongest, and in terms of versatility for the virtual reality and virtual reality headsets, it's not the best in terms of usage, but they are planning on going further with it. But I don't see any applications for augmented reality anytime soon.
Okay. I was actually looking for, my son is a fanatic, and a lot of other kids are a fanatic of Minecraft. And I was looking for that same kind of concept of Minecraft in VR. So I know Roblox is another.
Michael, I've used that with my son. It works very well. Please try Vivecraft. Find the Vivecraft. It is absolutely amazing. It's one of the most immersive, creative experiences you will ever see. If your son likes Minecraft and builds amazing things, and then you jump inside what he's built, if you don't have a tear in your eye from standing in what your son has built,
perfect.
Remarkable. Vivecraft.
Vivecraft. Got it. Thank you.
Absolutely. And then we had a question. Thank you for that, Chad. We had a question from Reese, please. Yeah,
actually, you guys already answered it with Dave's question. I was just curious about platforms. I don't have a budget. I'm just sort of getting started and trying to figure out what I could do. Just, where should I focus my efforts? I did a test case with my students using AltSpace, and that was cool, but it's a lot of my free time I'm putting into this, and I hadn't actually heard of the platform you're using, but I was really intrigued by the moving tables around and things like that.
Yeah.
So Reese, that's Engage. This platform we're in right now is Engage.
First time in Engage, so learning lots of new things.
Okay. What subject matter and what level are your students?
College.
Yeah. Okay. Excellent.
Are you?
So if you can connect with me on LinkedIn, Theriault is my last name, and you'll see my name in the
description of the event.
I'll send you a link. I've been curating a list of virtual reality applications for the subject matter area. About 300 different apps, and you can just browse through that and you can choose the ones you want to explore.
This Reese is why Rob is a great person to know, because he has those kind of resources.
He's a player. He's a real player in this field. The other thing also, if you don't know, Rob helps us with this as well. We have an Educators VR Facebook group and also a Discord server where we have 2,000-3,000 members who are sharing resources, experiences, collaborating in and with VR. So please feel free to
I'm
join
on the Discord.
that.
I actually didn't know about Facebook though.
Yeah, we do have that as well. So but Rob's list of apps and platforms, please reach out to him for that. So here we are. Never enough time, Matt. It's been such fun. We're not gonna suddenly abruptly end this. I've got one or two little things up my sleeve if you have a few more minutes. But just before we do that, I'm gonna kind of thank everybody. Rob, thank you. I think we just lost Michael there. He may well come back. He's quite versed in this technology. But I just want to take a moment to say thank you to you for joining and your patience, and we're going to unmute your microphones in just a moment. Here he is. Is he back? Yeah, there you go. Did you press the exit button, or was it a glitch in the right? Yeah. So Matt, thank you so much, not only for today, but of course for sponsoring this whole event, and I'm very excited about what we might do together when we've both recovered from the conference. Rob, thank you for your friendship and your professional sharing. Michael, I look forward to connecting with you more as well. I was just explaining, Michael, I'm kind of formally ending the event, but feel free to hang around. We've got 1 or 2 things up our sleeves. So
Sure. Okay.
with that, I also want to thank Avantis and ClassVR, the Engage platform, all of our other sponsors, including LBX Immersive and Waking Dream, and our filmers, Carlos Austin and Andrew from BURR Castle XR. Thank you so much, everybody. David, good to see you. And now please feel free to unmute yourself. Actually, sorry, 1 second. We're going to just go silent for the camera.